Hello.
Hello.
I'm so happy to be back with you here, Claire, producer extraordinaire, client, friend, actress, host, comedian.
Thank you so much for that introduction.
Intimacy coordinator. What else do we have?
I know, right? I was just recently thinking about expanding my signature in my email. Anywho, that's neither here nor there. Hello. Projector.
Yes. What's your sign again? I never know anyone's astrology.
Aries. I'm right before you.
Oh, right. You're right. I forget. Because I don't think I like any Aries, but that's wrong.
The thing. And I typically don't like Taurus because I think we're usually combative.
Really? Yeah.
Because it's like the ram and the bull. Hello.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
Not friends. But
literally not once.
Not once. But here's the thing. Projector and reflector.
Oh, maybe.
Supersedes. But what is your, not to get woo-woo, but now I'm just curious.
I know. I'm like, everyone thought they were tuning into a health podcast.
Oh, I know. Listen, mental health.
Oh my God. Can you hear that?
I can hear that.
Let me turn it off.
Wait.
It's stopped. Let me turn it off so it might start again. It's just my dishwasher being from 1980 and being like,
okay, but
done.
Also, okay, bragging, but go ahead.
Hold on.
Rude.
Let me make sure it doesn't happen again.
Okay.
I feel like there's something about European appliances where everything takes longer.
Yes. Well, because you know why?
Because
they're typically energy efficient.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah. They're typically like water and energy efficient because Europe's a step ahead of us. Not great, but a step ahead of the US in terms of conservation.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Then I won't be upset. I'll be like, guys,
don't be upset. Fine.
It's okay. Sorry, we're going back to the very scientific study of astrology and human design.
Very scientific. And I know I've asked this before, just a quick cue.
Sure.
Your moon and your rising?
I am Taurus sun, Sagittarius moon, Leo rising.
Interesting. I think the Sagittarius and Leo, I like both of those. Aries likes both of those.
And I feel like I'm in a very Sagittarius. I'm like always kind of Leo, obviously.
Yeah. Obviously.
But I feel like I'm living in Europe. Like I'm always having a Sagittarius moment these days.
Absolutely. Okay. And just to close out that loop, my moon is Aquarius and my rising is Virgo.
Oh, see, these are signs I know nothing about.
Yes. Aquarius, we are chill. We are, we are mutable. Virgo, very type A.
Yeah, Virgo's kind of is Virgo September?
Yes.
Yeah. I've actually dated a couple of Virgos successfully. They were like good. It was good for me. Yeah. I think I like anyone that's really good at life admin.
Honestly, they're great people to know. They are great people to know. And I think that
Capricorns and Virgos, like, please come like admin up my life.
Absolutely. And I'm very good at other people's admin, as we know.
That's true. You are.
Not my own. Not my own.
Yeah, that is also true.
We know that. We know that to be true. Anywho.
Speaking of your life admin.
Thank you so much.
We had a call. We had a coaching call yesterday.
Yes, we did.
And you had some homework.
I sure did.
Do you want to talk a little bit about like where you're at and what's going on and what you're working on and fill us in a little bit about if you did your homework?
Okay, so first of all, I'll give you an update with my life.
Right.
Not much is new.
I would disagree, but how you're showing up in life, I think, is much different.
How I'm showing up is different. Tangible items and actions to report on, minimal. Right? Like we don't have a ton to show for it. But I mean, I feel like I'm continuing to just get challenges in terms of life. And like, I clearly believe, again, not woo-woo, but I clearly believe that I am having to battle, to accept these challenges before I move and before my next step, right? In life.
Like really full circle closing out the New York chapter.
Right, which includes everything, but also based down to like financially and relationship and self-confidence and how I show up every day for myself and for others. So, I feel like I'm worse than ever, which is shocking. I never thought it would be worse, but I'm worse than ever about connecting with friends.
Is it worse than like the end of last year?
I think here's the difference. I've had a couple friends reach out in the last few days from Nashville. Oh, okay. My other home.
You guys, I learned all of this news shit about Claire yesterday that they didn't know. Like, she worked at Yellowstone and then was like, went to college in Montana for a little while. I was like, wait a minute, what?
Yes, I did. And then Indiana.
Like, you've had 35,000 lifetimes.
I really have.
She was a tour guide. Can we all picture her as a tour guide at Yellowstone? Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
Give us a snippet. Like, what would, like, can you pretend?
Yellowstone Lake has 110 miles of shoreline. You may wonder, like, it's not that big of a lake, but here's the thing. There's lots of fingers and crevices. So while the surface area is not tremendous, there's a extensive shoreline.
I love it. And
I'm rusty, but that is a true fact.
I love it. I can just picture. Did you have to wear like a ranger costume?
So I wasn't a ranger. So there are two people employed by national parks, two types of people. There's the rangers that work for like the government, whatever. And then there's always a concessionaire. So so there are people who are hired. Like, I didn't work for the government. I worked for this company that the government hired. So like all the workers that aren't rangers are so I had a uniform, of course, but it wasn't a ranger.
What did it look like? I feel like it's beige.
No.
Whoa.
Navy and hello, your colors, girl.
I was going to say
navy and white.
I love a navy and white combination.
I had it was like a blue and white stripe, very similar to my typical shirt that I wear all the time. Okay, she loves a stripe.
That resonates with me as well, yes.
But it was like a short sleeve button down, super. And I had a crazy huge size because that was in the time, that was mid-90s. Yeah. We wore very oversized things.
What are we talking about with pants these days? We're getting back there.
We are 100%.
We're getting back there.
So what we're familiar with now. And then we were able to wear shorts. So it was a navy, like chino short.
Cute.
Of course, exceptionally short because not like what we understand to be short these days, but back in the day, short. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Also
mid-thigh.
Here's the thing. If I wear a regular short, it looks obscene.
It's true because if
my legs.
You're new to us, Claire is how tall?
6'1".
Yeah. She's a tall drink of water.
Thank you so much. And mainly legs. So
do you have a short torso and long legs?
I have like a normal torso.
Oh, and just like very long legs.
And very long legs.
I have a long torso and like medium legs.
It really makes a difference.
This is literally the most ADHD conversation we've had. Anyway, I want to share a fun fact about Maine because you made me think of it. And then I want to go back to what we were originally
I was like, whoa,
about.
Okay.
It really, when you were talking about the fingers of the lake, did you know, fun fact, because for those of you who didn't know, I grew up in Maine, that if you stretched out the Maine coastline, it would be longer than California.
I did not know that, and I love knowing that.
Isn't that a fun fact? Because
that is fun.
Of the same reason, right? There's a lot of inlets, but there's so many tiny islands, so they include that as well.
Yes.
Longer than the coastline of California. You're welcome. Now everyone has a fun fact about my home state of Maine.
I love that.
And we want to go back to the fact that you're a shitty friend, it sounds like.
Yeah, thank you.
Not true. A shitty communicator, maybe.
A shitty communicator. I have God, I can't be thankful enough for my out of town friends that are still around. You included.
Yay.
Because I've had
You
a couple.
are always, well, unless you're having a really hard time, you're quite responsive to me.
I disappear when
You
I'm
do
having
a
a hard
little
time.
bit, but not if you like are on the hook. If we have plans to talk or record, or you have something.
Listen, if I have plans to talk, then I'm usually pretty good. The problem is that, and I've said to multiple friends before, I'm like, we have to schedule a call. Telling me I can call at any time, it will never happen.
Interesting.
And if you call me randomly, chances are I won't answer.
I think if you call anyone, well, I got really high pitched there. Whoa.
I know.
If you call anyone randomly these days, they freak out. Like, I think I was responding to like a random call. It's
For
like you feel like it's intrusive.
If it's not like someone you're expecting in general. Like if you were to call me, I'd be like, oh, there's something, an update or something like that. Yeah. But like a friend that I don't talk to frequently, like, oh my God.
No, it's like, hey, who died? Or why are you mad at me?
Right. Like you're upset. You're upset.
Literally, that's how we know I'm like a recovering people pleaser / anxious attachment.
I know.
Why do you hate me? Why do you call
I know.
me?
It's funny. I don't have a why do you hate me? Mine is like, oh, I feel so bad that I haven't talked to you before. Like I go internal as opposed to, because if they hate me, they're not contacting me.
Oh no, it's like, why are you calling me to yell at me? Which is probably never happened.
Never happened. I was like, I've never had that happen. I don't think. Yeah. My friend, one of my dear friends who lives in Austin, she was in town a few months ago and we were talking. She was like, will you please just let me know if you're mad at me? Because otherwise I will just randomly text you every couple months about something stupid. Like I won't know. And I was like, girl, same. Like I will never, I assume all is okay.
That's the better way to, I mean,
otherwise
with people I don't talk to all the time, I think I'm at that place. But there is a little bit of a like, what did I do wrong?
Yeah. So I'm worse than ever. But then here's the thing.
I love you talk about it so positively.
I know. It's like factual. You know what I mean?
We are what we are.
The last few, actually within this week, I've had multiple friends reach out and be like, hey, I haven't heard from you and you haven't been posting on Instagram. So just making sure, like at least there's kind of a bit of whether there's a false sense.
Wait, I think this is actually a real good thing because you've had a couple of dark moments recently where you're like, if I like for some reason deceased in my apartment, would anyone know?
Correct.
There are a number of people who...
Girl, thank you for that.
Number of people who are concerned maybe on a daily basis.
Thank you for that. And my dad
that out.
too.
Of course.
But yeah. No, that's very true. Yeah. And I think, and one friend who texted me last night was, she was like, no stress, I'm just worried about you and maybe you just haven't been doing anything that's content worthy, which is also true. But I feel like, it's interesting. So I have been, and I've had a few very easy messages that I just simply haven't responded to. I don't know. I've gotten tons of DMs. I can't even, and not like, oh, I have so many, but like people sending me memes or whatever, like silly things. I just simply haven't, like, I just stare at all of these that are like 4+ messages and I just can't even open them.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
as I become less of a people pleaser, I'm getting worse with my phone, which kind of feels like liberation.
Yeah. I am getting better about having to document everything. Right. But I've also noticed that I don't take photos as much. I also don't have as many, like even with people or doing things that I enjoy, which is on one hand wonderful because I'm just existing in that moment. Yeah. But then on the other hand, it's like we do live, at least I certainly live in so much of a recap world, right? And like being able to look back and see things that I did. And so it's like looking back and I'm like, have I done nothing? And it's like, oh no, I saw this person, I saw that person. I just didn't take photos. You know, I don't know why I got off on this side note, but
I feel
anywho,
like it came up the other day as well. You were worrying about photos.
I know I am annoyed with photos. Here's a sidetrack. Here's a PSA.
Just have a PSA.
I'm going to have a PSA to everyone.
Let's have one.
People, okay, I'm talking about being present and having, like, not necessarily being on your phone or taking photos, but everyone, most people loves a good candid photo of themselves. And the majority of people are too embarrassed to ask a friend to take it.
Okay, so PSA, everyone take candid photos of each other, especially of Claire.
Yes. Especially of me. Thank you so much. When I was hanging out with a friend back in the fall, I was taking lots of photos of life situations and like forwarding them to her.
Yeah.
And she was like, God, you're so good at that. And I was like, I know, I'm just doing what I want people to do for me.
I know.
But then she still didn't take photos.
Maybe this is just something you need to communicate with your friends.
Here's the thing. Don't be subtle about it, okay?
No. I mean, the older I get, it's just sort of like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And this is what I need.
I know. That's it. It's a weird thing where it's like, it feels so gross.
I mean, whatever, a glass of wine and being like, you know what I love? And I would like for you to, if it comes to it, it's not even like, do it now. It's like, if it comes to mind, like, just know that I'm someone that would always appreciate that.
I think I shouldn't make such large statements, but I feel like a photo of yourself when you're truly enjoying a moment, like laughing or something silly or whatever, is always appreciated. I
think so too. Okay, let's all agree collectively to take more candid photos of one another.
Yeah. It's not about how you look.
Like dressed up and not, well, true, but if you're like hungover and at brunch, I don't know what you're doing, laying on the ground. I don't think.
Laying on the ground. I want people to take photos of me laying on the ground because I do it all the time. Like out in the wild, if you see me laying on the ground, take a photo. Okay? Tag me when you post it so I can repost and show my friends I'm alive. Barely.
More concerned than ever. More concerned than ever. Okay, so
Annie!
We got so off track. Basically, yesterday, it's so interesting. This year has such different energy than last year to it.
Boy,
this is just, I guess we're going full woo-woo with this episode. But I swear, and I see it in myself, in like my own creativity and motivation and clarity in life. I see it in my friends. I see it in my clients. I see it in you. Literally, so many people. It's like last year was so internal, and I feel like something shifted, and there's a lot more external. And I see so many people having the energy to go out and do things more. Or there's so many people going through like really big career transitions.
Yeah,
that are going from something maybe a little bit more traditional to something non-traditional, or like going back into the workforce. A couple of my mom friends are like re-entering the workforce, trying to figure that out. Or, coming out of like a big, life hiatus. Yeah. And I mean, with you, and this is what we were talking about yesterday, we were talking about what would get you moving forward. And as Claire is a performer and used to do tons of live shows, that obviously like got off track a bit with the pandemic.
Obviously, yeah.
So part of her homework yesterday was to reach out to people to ask about.
I really miss performing. I really miss being, I'm not a traditional stand-up, but a little bit more storytelling style. I miss hosting shows. I miss like sketch, doing acting and sketch, but less so almost. More of just being myself on stage. Yeah. I've been thinking about it a lot for a while. And I've got a gazillion friends, maybe not that many, but a gazillion acquaintances that host stand-up shows and like live shows. And I just have been shy because I also know I'm not going to work on my type 5 until I have a show to perform for. I clearly don't work on anything unless I have a deadline.
I mean, I think isn't everyone a little bit like that?
Yeah,
who's doing their homework ahead of time.
Right. Like I mentally am working
Did
on
you
it.
do it?
No.
Weird. Demerit. What happened?
Okay. So yesterday we were talking.
We did.
And there were a couple things. You're so helpful in like, okay, let's figure out like actionable items that you'll feel good about, that are easy to do today.
In this moment.
To get ready. And two things beyond just the like getting back on shows, whatever. The other thing is starting an accountability group.
Yes.
And nothing major, just like, hey, friends, anyone else want to have like a weekly thing?
Yeah.
So your homework to May was to send that email and or Instagram story of like who's interested in an accountability group, and then reach out to 3 people about getting on a show. I did none of that.
Wait, but why? Oh,
okay.
Sorry, the light here's so crazy.
I know.
But so what happened?
Thank you for asking. A couple things.
And I told her she had to talk about it today.
I know, I did. I even knew I would have accountability. So something
and there would be millions of people listening and disappointed.
So many people listening.
So many fans.
And so many people. I'm going to get so many messages that I won't read.
Literally no consequences.
Literally no consequences. Okay. Here's my justification. Are you ready? I do have a lot. We were also talking about how much, because I have not managed my time or to-do list well at all.
Right.
So which is no surprise. So I do have a very large project, a production design job coming up, and I have a lot to do before Friday. 2 days. Now we're 1 day. Because I'm presenting a bunch of stuff, right? So I started to get overwhelmed with that. So after we got off the call, I started looking at like my time frame. I forgot that I have a thing tonight, so I have less time than I thought I originally had on that. I also have another audition that I have to do Friday after that call. Okay. And so I looked at I said, let me just glance at this to see, like, to schedule when I'm going to prep for this. It is a short film. There are 2 scenes I have to do. One of them is 6 pages long. And so I was like, ay. So then I read the script.
Oh, you had to get off book for over.
I'm going to have to be off book on Friday after I have to do all this other work.
Okay. These are good excuses.
Thank you so much.
She's not in trouble. Did you go to the exercise class with your
I did not go to the exercise class. But I will say,
you have a lot of work to do.
Here's the thing. I didn't disassociate and get on my phone and watch TV. I did actually do a bunch of stuff. Like I worked so much on the project. I read the script. I worked a little bit on the sides.
Yeah.
So I did do stuff. I was like working into the night. So I feel okay because I did stuff that I needed to do.
That's great. And
thank you so much.
In the past, getting you out of, well, it's interesting. Claire and I was that last week? The session where we uncovered all the 3 different parts.
That was last week.
Yeah. So Claire, you explain it. I think since the pandemic, you ended up really getting yourself into a place that was like dark and a bit uncomfortable,
boy.
Avoidant of life.
Yeah.
And your nervous system got very attuned to the
checking out.
Yeah, it was a lot of checking out. And so we're recovering from this and seeing because it's always interesting when I work with people. It's so funny. Everyone is like, I want to do this. And then they do something else entirely. Yeah. So it's our job to figure out what's going on.
Right.
So I'm like, you say you want to do this, like consciously you want to do this, but unconsciously.
Well, there's tons of stuff I want to do.
Else going on. And so we had a really interesting session that was sort of a little internal family systems-esque, where we were just talking to Claire's parts, which sounds
funny. Sounds very fun. That's a different session.
That's a different kind of session.
Yeah.
And really starting to do inquiry if you haven't done any IFS stuff, really starting to look internal around like the different parts of our personality, that maybe there's a part of us that really does want to be very active and get out there and make things and do things, and another part of us that's very scared. So we uncover these 3 distinct parts that sort of run Claire's life. Do you want to introduce them?
Yes, I will. Thank you so much. So yeah, and the way that we got there, I mean, there was just like a little bit of like closing eyes, breathing into, like tuning in,
feeling our feelings,
feeling our feelings, and being like, what are these energies that are kind of internal that are pulling you in different ways? So there were 3 entities, shall I say, 3 people, sure, that I felt.
3 parts.
Parts, thank you so much. One, a very prominent one, is the gray blob.
And that is very cool. Claire drew them for me.
I did draw them.
They were, it was excellent. Anyway,
yes,
so the gray blob is the dissociative one.
Right, exactly. And the sad one.
Yeah.
You know, just like
it's primarily grief then.
Yes. Yeah. Just like curled up in a fetal position on the ground. Take a picture. But just like very sad and lonely and scared to be left alone. Right. So a lot of grief there for sure. The other part that is very loud is the critic. The internal critic is, it seems like that's more self-effacing, but it's more of just like, what's the fucking point?
Yeah, you know, just like I like the description of her.
Yeah, so she's sitting, legs crossed, arms crossed, smoking a cigarette.
Yeah.
Right? And like hands up with the cigarette, like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, the world is ending. Politics are a dumpster fire. Like, why would you even leave the house? Who fucking cares?
Wait, I just got to download. Can you, maybe this is part of your one woman show? Like, this is a character that now I think you need to play, right? Like, you just went into it.
I play her very well.
I know. All right.
I also play the blob very well.
She can lay flat.
I know.
I don't know. There might be something to this. Okay, keep going. Sorry. I don't hate it. Like crazy.
No, I don't hate it. All right,
go back into it. Okay, she's smoking.
So she's smoking. So her biggest thing is like, again, what's the point? And that statement has been very present in my life the last few years. And it's been a very easy justification for the blob.
Yeah.
Right?
And where do you think the origin of that comes from?
I think it's just, I think there's a few reasons. One is I'm not living in, and it sounds cheesy, but right, let's just use the words we know. I'm not living in my purpose. So what I have been doing primarily the last few years is that I've been observing the world from a very passive place. And so it starts to become overwhelming. Like, what is the point of me trying to do anything if we're, as a society and as a world, going in this direction, right? And so then that helps justify the sadness and the disassociated state, and like, because it doesn't matter. Nothing fucking matters, right? Like, that's, and just, so it's like, that's her. Yeah. So there's a lot of justification with that. And then there's also like, and then on a more localized level, it's the critic is your cellulite is so much.
Is that your ringtone?
Yeah.
It's like an old phone.
It is. It rarely happens.
I don't know what mine sounds like.
I know. That was weird. I don't know why the sound was up. But on a personal level, it's like, of course you're not, like, what's the point of even trying to go on a date? Because look what you fucked up last year. Look, tears. What's the point,
eyes, folks?
Right. And what's the point of, to continue trying to perform and do things like no one fucking cares. No one's going to fucking come, so it's that kind. And so then it's like, oh, great. And then I'll go into a blob, like.
Right. Which is so sad because it's like, well, don't do it for them. Do it for you.
Well, this is my biggest challenge recently.
Right.
Is figuring out, again, it's the if Claire performs in the woods and no one's there to see it, what's the point? That's my alt to the tree falls in
well there. I think that it's okay. Like I've talked about this before. A couple years ago, I hired this coach and they're like, go into the woods for 2 weeks by yourself with like nothing. Mm-hmm. So I did, because I was like trying to make a big decision, but it was only 10 days. I didn't interact with another person.
And you camped for 10 days?
Oh God, no. No.
I was like, why do I not know camping? This story?
No. It was hard to find a place because it was like in August in Maine, which is like, you can't rent anything. No. And like, I'm not sleeping in a tent for one night. Like immediately no. But
quick side note, I did Outward Bound.
Oh,
did we talk about that? I know that's another thing. And so I did have to do a 3-day solo, like tent camping, leave no trace in the woods by myself.
And where? In like Tennessee?
No, Central Cascades of Oregon. Anywho.
Why? When? How old were you?
That was between high school and college.
Why did you want to do that?
I did a 21-day trip on Outward Bound. 6 days river rafting and got a certification of how to, guide white
You're
water.
So handy and outdoorsy in ways
so
that surprise me all the
time.
And
it took me this long to realize I was gay.
She was talking yesterday how she like was working a lighting grid, and I was like, and you didn't know you were gay then?
I know. I'm like, because I fought it.
Typical, shall we? Come on.
I know. Well, that's the thing. I didn't want to be stereotypical. But anywho, we did, it was 6 days on river rafting, getting a certification that I could guide. And then we did climbing and hiking in the Central Cascades. And then part of that was 3 days solo, where they dropped us off. Like if I needed someone, I could have like screamed out and someone would have come. But like we had a set amount of area that we had to be in by ourselves for 3 days.
Oh, how was it?
It was great. I mean, terrifying. But great. I think it would be 110% different now in my life than it was then. You know what I mean? Like,
I basically grew up in Outward Bound in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
My parents were like forever trying to get me to be more outdoorsy. And I was like, I don't know how I ended up here. Like, please let me stay inside and play Barbies.
So funny. I know. But I'm so sorry to derail.
That's okay.
We went for 10 days.
10 days. No. So I stayed in a converted apartment above an old horse barn. So
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
In the middle of this field on this river. So there are people around, but I didn't interact with anyone.
Okay.
For 10 days.
So you had civilization, but it wasn't.
Civilization was nearby. And I wasn't allowed to do anything besides like meditate, make art, write, read things about like meditation or BL, work out. So I was like biking and swimming because it was the summer, and like cooking and meditating. And then I did bring some psilocybin mushrooms with me. Mm-hmm. And halfway through and day 5 was hardest because it was like, you got like, I was like counting out. Day 3, I finally got off the phone addiction. I was like trying to look for my phone every time I felt something unpleasant, I would look for my phone, and that stopped after 2 days, which was wild because I didn't realize even the slightest bit of discomfort, we look for our phones.
Yes, we do.
So after 3 days, that was gone. And then day 5, I also was sugar detoxing because I know. I was like, well, if I'm going to do 10 days,
no, I mean, I
might break really healthy food and get like all the clarity, right?
I don't blame you. No, that's great.
And there's nothing around, so I did it. So then I was like, day 5 is also like sometimes sugar detox. And day 5, it was like, oh, this is forever and so long, and they couldn't even bring fiction. They wanted you to just be like really present. And I took psilocybin mushrooms. And I allowed myself to listen to music on them. I didn't like turn my phone on or anything, but I had music.
Okay.
And can I tell you, I went to the like edge of the river in kind of the woods, danced around by myself for hours. Can I tell you, Claire? The best. It was so much fun. So if Claire does theater or stand up or dances around and no one watches, Still
It's
excellent.
still
She's having a great time.
okay.
And
It's
that's the
still
thing.
okay.
I feel like the more I get into like studying meditation and consciousness and all of this, every experience is up to us. So like obviously we want to be kind to other people and like we need other people in community and all those things, but like at the end of the day, like we're in and out by ourselves. You're kind of alone anyway.
Yeah.
Do shit that makes you have the best time.
I know, but it's so hard. Like logically, realistically, I fully agree with that. And I will preach that to other people. But it's hard for me to do in practice. And I think it's just hard.
Which is interesting because it's still...
Now, I feel. I'm saying all of this in the last few years versus before the pandemic. Things, I certainly... I'm not a totally different person, but things are heightened in a different way.
Do you think that the pause of the pandemic made you, like, forced you to look at pain that you hadn't dealt with prior?
Yeah, for sure.
The interesting thing about New York City and about, like, the industry that you're still in, that I was in.
Yeah.
You can, like, run as fast as you can away from yourself.
Yeah.
All the
Keep
time.
yourself very busy.
And comedy is a great way to process grief, but also a great way to avoid and make light of what's happening on the inside.
Yep.
So that's interesting. So it caught up with you.
It caught up with me. Yeah. And I think, as it did, I know for a lot, I mean, I think that's so much of why so many things are changing. I mean, also planetary. I'll just say that.
This is just now just purely turning into an astrology and human design website. You can be the astrology expert. I'll be the human design expert.
Which I am far from an expert, but I know just enough to pretend like I know. But I mean, astrologically, yes, things have shifted a lot this year to make more active.
Okay, whatever. That's what's happening. So we're feeling this, and the planets are doing it to us.
Yes. But also, I mean, I think it's residual from the way that the last 3 years have been, right? Yeah. Like we've had a trauma. Yeah. We're all figuring out what our new world is and our new lives. Yeah. And, you know, and the avoidance and the just running just without even thinking and doing the shoulds and the whatever, like all that kind of pause, there's still, you know, you could still easily continue doing that if you've got enough busyness that's happening around you, family and jobs and whatever. Yeah. But for me, who has no immediate family that needs me, you know, and a career and a job in a world that doesn't want me.
or like, for that matter, unless you're really famous.
Or like you actively have to fight to stay in. Yeah. Right? It's just, it's really hard because I was forced to stop. And as we all were, and then you got to look internal. And then I just sat internal for years. Yeah. Having to like shed friendships, experience things, dive a little bit deeper, whatever. So this is all not new information, but I'm just saying that, yes, it's some of these crutches and difficult behaviors and tendencies of disassociation and what's the point and all of these things, while they were present a little bit before, now they're extreme. Right? And then I've become almost reliant on
you said something really interesting yesterday about, because things are different. You have a lot more going on, you're doing a lot more, like you're finally coming out of this fog that we've seen you in since, I mean, we started working together in 2021. Yeah. And you did my first program. You're the first person that signed up. Yay! And you're coming out of it. Like the past year, and especially this year, you've come out of it in a way. And I mean, you were dealing with complex grief. I mean, you had a couple of family members pass, and that's part of, you know, all of this. But it was really interesting because you were saying you had sort of a hard day on Sunday, but then you had a busy day on Monday and Tuesday, and then your nervous system gets a little overstimulated. And I thought you had a really interesting insight about that.
What did I say?
I do that to people all the time. They're like, what are you talking about?
What did I say?
It's like you've been too active, you've been too much with other people, and the blob part of you freaks out and is like,
freaks out.
And it's like you don't even maybe need to be a blob to have the blob moment, but it's like you've been too active. You're too out in the world. You haven't been internal enough, right? Because you've been so used to being stagnant and internal and in your own grief and in your own, where it's like when you go out in the world, even if it's really positive, it's uncomfortable. And this speaks to, I think, I see this a lot where we talk about, right, the joy ceiling, or as you grow. It's interesting because you probably you've been much more expansive and had, a bigger career in life and more going on.
Absolutely.
But something about the pandemic made you contract and get really used to that in your nervous system. And as you expand again, your nervous system is freaking out.
Scared.
Because even though it's good, and again, this happens to all of us and something we all need to pay attention to, even when it's good, we freak out. And then we go back to our old coping mechanisms. So it's really interesting to watch people on both sides of, like, things aren't good. They're going through, maybe they're experiencing trauma or going through a really hard time in their life. They're going through the coping mechanisms and the numbing. But then on the other side, when people are growing and expanding their life in a more positive way, the same thing can start to happen. And, people like to call that self-sabotage, but I had a mentor at one point that was saying he never believed in that. It's just, you're just trying to stay safe.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'm reading this book right now called, Claire, I've talked about this a lot. I think anyone who's come in my path in the past 2 weeks have talked about this.
Yeah.
But it's this really interesting book called Existential Kink. And it's essentially looking at the unconscious, or like shadow work. They talk about, she always says this thing, having is wanting.
Having is wanting. Okay.
And the idea is that everything that you have that is present in your life, you actually want. Both the good and the bad. The good are the things that you consciously went after and you have, and the friendships or whatever it is that actually makes you feel good. But the bad is your shadow, or is your subconscious calling. And it's funny because she talks about it. She has a PhD. She, I think, started off as like a heroin addict or something.
Great.
And
great way to start.
When she's in recovery, I think I don't even remember, because I'm listening to the audiobook, which I never do. I need to read. I have to listen to it again or actually buy the book, because I'm so visual when it comes to learning things. Yeah. Although I do like podcasts. It's different. But I have to re-listen. Anyway, you didn't need to know. No one needed to know.
No, but here's market, things about Lianna.
Okay. Claire wants people to take pictures of her. Lianna's a visual learner.
Thank you.
And she, I think I had something happened where she became after she had maybe had a master's, or I don't know what, she was not doing well, and she was in recovery, 12-step, and talking, there's a lot of talk about religion and God, and the idea that she was looking around and being okay, if God created everything and is love or whatever, and
sure, there's
so much fucked up shit in the world, then she's God's a kinky motherfucker. and if I'm an extension of God and I'm creating all of this stuff, I'm pretty kinky also, what I'm darkly into. Right. And I just think it's a really kind of interesting and empowering way to look at your life and some of the choices you're making. Mm-hmm. And I don't disagree. And the whole idea, there's a lot of exercise and meditation practices in it, where she talks about how once you make conscious the unconscious, and once you allow yourself to enjoy the dark satisfaction you get out of being a victim, or for me, it's oh, poor little me that everyone forgets about, and, I can't do anything myself. I can see that's a through line of things for me. I can't figure it out. It's so hard. I'm so helpless. Whatever it is, once you allow yourself to see that you get some sort of satisfaction out of it, then, and you really revel in it, it transforms. and you can let it go and make a different choice. But I really like the idea of starting. And I was having a kind of a difficult conversation last week with someone. And I was like, I'm really uncomfortable. I hate this. And then I started also observing what was happening in my body. And I was like, okay, I have a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety. There's some tightness in my chest. I feel like a little bit like fluttery. And then I'm like, where else do I know this feeling from? Being on stage.
Interesting.
Like about to go into an audition, right? I feel really alive. I feel kind of anxious. I feel it's like, fear and excitement, same side of, it's like, oh, I'm someone who did used to like to perform, I did stand up. I've done a lot of things that people think are really scary. I mean, I moved to another country by myself.
Girl, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I will like push myself in different directions. I'm like, oh, these certain dynamics that I can sometimes call into a relationship probably come from the fact that like I do like to like be on the edge of my seat. And what's that about? Right?
Well, it's like that risk, people who like taking risks, or the adventure seekers and things like that. Yeah.
Right. Adrenaline junkie energy. Yeah. Right.
That's what I was.
So starting to look at like even like how I handle finances sometimes. I'm like, ooh, will I put things down to the wire? Like, how do I make this more exciting? Or it's like, oh shit, interesting. But I invite you and everyone listening, start looking at the areas of your life where you're really frustrated. I think it's really empowering because there is probably something you're getting out of it. And if we want to like zoom out and look at something like, emotional addiction, right? Where, love maybe felt a certain way to you because of the dynamics you grew up in childhood. So you continue to seek out those patterns, even if they're not the healthiest, right? Or like those, it's sort of in that vein of, okay, this is what familiar love, though it's painful, felt like as a kid, and I'm doing it again now because it feels good to me, right? But of course it feels good to you. That's all you knew. But and I believe that we're here to learn and grow and expand, lean into that and start to like take inventory of your life. Where am I just getting my like dark, kinky satisfaction out of like hurting, hurt or anxiety or any of those things?
I like that. Say that again. Having is wanting.
What is that? Having is wanting.
Having is wanting. I do like. Yeah, that's a cold reality check.
Yeah, right. Where it's like, and I think, and like clearly, and she goes into the fact that like, yes, war, yes, like circumstances, yes, poverty and race and all of those things. But it's interesting because she zooms out and she's like, I think that's a collective want from humanity, are these dark parts of how we treat people. And it just really, it's very interesting. She uses a lot of like myth, and she goes into like, she talks a lot about psychology and I'm enjoying it if anyone wants to start to look into it in a different way. And it's kind of a funny way to like a tongue-in-cheek way to look at some of the hard stuff. Yeah. But I think it is wise. There are things out of our control, of course, but
of course,
to try to see where we're taking, try to take responsibility and see where we are responsible for so many of the choices and things that we've made in life. How many times can I say responsible in one sentence?
Girl, keep trying. I love it. No, I think that, I mean, we've talked about numerous times the emotional addiction, like you said. And I think there's like the addiction to the coping mechanisms and things like that. And going back to the 3 parts that I discovered.
But we didn't even get to introduce the third.
Right. So that's what I was saying, that I was about to say. So that we have the gray blob, that's a sad give up, just barely existing. And then there's the critic that's like, what's the fucking point? And then there was a tiny, tiny little third part who is the shiny, happy one. Right. And she's just very small right now because she hasn't been fed as much recently, right? So it's like the person who loves to be out and talking to people and doing things and have a purpose and being productive, being active physically, mentally, emotionally. And so part of when we were looking at these parts of me, whatever the entity is, if you will,
that makes me sound haunted.
I know it does. But it also keeps coming to me. The blob is what I've been so comfortable in right? And the critic has been justifying this. The way to nurture the shiny happy Claire.
Which, can we tell it the name? That's my favorite part. Tell the name of the shiny happy little one.
30 something. I'm mid, if not starting to go late 40s. Yeah. But she's a 30 something.
I know. She's like, she's like young and perky. She's 30. I was like, what's she called?
30 something.
I love it.
Because I love my 30s.
Oh, great.
Because I did a lot in my 30s. My 20s were sad. That's when everyone died. Yeah. And so it's like my 30s, and I also told my mother when I was in junior high, I couldn't wait to be 30. Like I knew my 30s and 40s were going to be much better than my 20s. Yeah. Because you have a more sense of self. So, so 30 something. It's like, that's the youth I want.
Yeah. That energy, that
energy. I don't want I want the more knowledgeable and confident youth, if that makes sense. Which is 30s.
Not the dum-dums.
Not the dum-dum, not the
No. I'm 20 and I know everything.
Yeah, no fucking way. They're the worst.
I know. Oh,
they're the worst.
You couldn't pay me. I would not. 30s, yes. 20s, no.
Absolutely. 20s are the literal worst. There was a book.
I mean, it was fun. High highs. There were some really great years in there, and there were some
formative.
Really low lows.
You gotta live through them in order
to. Try your best, guys. Try your best.
There was a book that I read eons ago, maybe like 15 to 20 years ago, called Kiss My Tiara.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's been that long since I've read it. So I have no idea if it's problematic or what at this stage, right? You know what I mean? But there was a chapter in it that
What type of book was this? Is it like fiction or are we like...
No. It was like a self-help, like a commentary, whatever. Advice giving sort of. I don't know. Essays. I don't fucking know. I'm not literary. Okay. Just kidding.
Genre.
I know. What genre? I mean, it wasn't fiction. It wasn't a novel or whatever. But there was one chapter talking about your 20s and talking about how your 20s are the absolute worst. Like, why do we glorify your 20s so much? And like, that's when you're supposed to know who you are and whatever. It's like there's a shift that needs to happen in general society, that 20s are for fucking up. You're not supposed to know what the hell you're doing. Disaster. Like, that's no longer the time
guys.
To get fucking married.
Do not even get engaged.
Do not get engaged. I mean, kids.
I mean, I was 30 when I got married, but I did get engaged.
No, I know, but like, give us some time. Okay?
Yeah. You're not cooked yet. You're not cooked yet.
Your brain is not fully formed until mid-20s. So like,
and then they say, I learned something. If you have like ADHD, it's like 35 or something.
It's crazy. So anywho, that has really stuck with me. And that was a very long side track to say, yes, my shiny happy person is a 30 something.
Great.
Right? Mm-hmm. In order to feed my 30 something shiny happy, I have to let the blob know that we're still going to hang out.
Yeah.
That we're still like, I'm not killing you off.
Right.
You're not going to be alone forever. You're not being left.
Right.
I'm just going to spend a little less time with you.
Yeah.
So that I can really grow and like love being the 30 something.
Yeah.
I love saying the 30 something over and over as a 46, almost 47-year-old. But again, we know why I say that. So yeah, those are the three parts. I mean, the critic is the biggest in terms of taking up space in my mind when I'm just visualizing it. But the critic is like a very skewed view of reality, and it also is supporting the blob, so it's taking over everything.
They seem like a team.
They're a team. They a little
bit feed into each other, and 30 somebody's like, hey guys, wait, things could be better. I don't know why she has a high-pitched voice,
because she's shiny and happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. I feel like I need to get the thing. Can I get the
yes,
drawing?
I think you absolutely should get the drawing, and maybe we should post it on our Instagram or something. I had a thought, and then I saw your cute cats.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, here we are. Here we are with the drawing. I love it. And your flies unzipped.
What'd you say?
Oh, I was talking this whole time and I forgot you couldn't hear me.
I can hear you.
Your flies unzipped.
I know. I did that. So my
So you're comfortable.
My fupa can hang out.
I had to teach someone here what fupa was recently.
How do they not know? I mean, I guess it's not
an American.
Yeah, because we like to make fun of women's bodies.
Yeah.
Critic.
Yep. With her cigarette.
She's green.
Yeah.
Envy.
Yes.
And she's loosely based on Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, yeah.
Critic. Blob. Fetal
Blob
position.
is like very evocative, and Blob feels so sad. Like, I feel that.
So fucking sad, right?
Yeah.
And her.
We have to put this on our Instagram or something.
I know, but I will. Yeah, and her, because I sleep sometimes with like dinosaur hands, you know, and like crisscross
so
feet,
much about you.
Right?
Oh, like real trying to
like
be a fetus.
Truly trying to be a fetus, and then tiny, she 30-something, and look, she's so wearing like a crop top and bike shorts.
She's ready to go.
And she's
got any activity.
Yeah, I know.
She's so happy.
And then just as I'm here, this was the week before the sad dying Claire.
This is her inner child.
Inner child. Gotta get her.
This is Claire's inner child.
So anyhow, art therapy.
Yes. I think it's really important.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Yeah. So they all exist. Mm-hmm. I keep this print out. This drawing out just to remind myself.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, who's in charge right now?
Yeah. And, you know, we all contain multitudes, and it is an interesting exercise. If you want, I mean, this is not even really it, but No Bad Parts is a book about internal family systems, which was created by this therapist called Richard Schwartz. If you are more curious, and there are plenty of therapists that practice this. Or you can just play around on your own. And if you find yourself stuck, like really investigate, like what part of me, you know, like what is the origin of this feeling? Is this feels young, or this feels, you know, like it can be very related to like inner child kind of things. Like what part of me is standing in the way? And then ask it what it needs. And I know this all sounds so crazy, but like we just want space, and we just want to be heard, and even like the different parts of us want to be heard and honored. And the craziest thing is when we acknowledge the feelings, feel the feelings, acknowledge the need, become conscious of the unconscious, and we create space for it, it always transforms.
Yeah,
it always transforms. There's just everything is always evolving and changing. And again, it is true. What we resist persists. And I think
we resist persists.
Yeah.
When you have these nuggets, I have to just like amplify them for a second.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So the biggest gift you can give yourself is the ability to create space and experience. And I got the most beautiful text message from a friend of mine here the other day. And she has a lot of health stuff, some like autoimmune. And she's one of those people where you wouldn't know. She brings such lightness and levity and comedy. She's like a joy to be around for someone who's like chronically not feeling well, which I think is incredible. Like that is so like... If I have a stomach ache, you know about it. I'm not.
Girl, I disappear. You know that.
Like, but like someone being in pain all the time that can bring that, I think is really incredible.
It's beautiful.
And we were talking about just, you know, our favorite tool with our favorite trauma healer. I was like telling her about emotional consolidation, which essentially is creating space. I read a Pema Chodron book a couple years ago called Welcoming the Unwelcome that was around this as well. But essentially, how can we, with whether it's physical or emotional pain, slow down and allow it in? And she was saying in the message, like she would sort of see it, like she would be aware of it and not do anything and like keep it going, keep like living her life. But she was like, something really is interesting is happening when I actually give myself space. Because I told her, instead of our knee-jerk reaction when anything is really painful and horrible is to literally shove it down, right?
Sure,
what can I have? Some
Run
sugar,
away.
a cigarette, like what can I shove in my face in this moment to get out of this? Like what can I buy? Who can I call?
Right.
Instead of just sitting in it. And she was like, sitting in it is transforming it in a really interesting way. But more importantly, it's teaching me it's not dangerous. And so much of our life, we live avoiding either both conscious and subconscious pain. So if you have practices, and this is what meditation is why it's so special, is it starts to create consciousness around unconscious things. Like the more you are quiet, the more you have space to hear what's going on and feel what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like we're not looking to reach enlightenment. We're just trying to check to see. We're just feeling around what's actually going on inside of us instead of just being outward all the time. But if you can really create space for all of this stuff, and you can really build practices around not shying away from the difficult, scary moments, it's so much easier to navigate life truthfully and to create what you really want out of life. Because I will guarantee you, everything that you want is just outside of your comfort zone.
Yep.
Because if it was in your comfort zone, you already have it and you're already bored. You're already taking it for granted. You don't care.
Yeah.
Everything you want is like a little bit. Maybe it's a lot outside. Maybe it's a little bit outside. Maybe. And all of that means you have to expand past what is comfortable. And every time you do that, even if it's to reach for the better feeling thought or to go out in the world and do more comedy and do things that you know you love that make you feel good, your brain's like, don't do it, you're gonna die, you're gonna die, you're gonna die. Sure. They're all gonna, what did they say in Carrie? They're all gonna laugh at you.
Yes.
They're all gonna laugh at you.
Which is the hope.
True,
for me.
True. Right, not at prom, but
not at prom when I'm trying to be cute and pretty. But if I'm trying to get them to laugh, yes.
Yeah. Stephen, we're making a Stephen King reference, which my middle name, fun fact, you guys are learning such fun facts about Claire and I today, is Carrie, spelled the same way. So I felt, because I grew up in Maine, and because that's my middle name, I felt very connected to
that story,
to her story, to the pig's blood. And absolutely. I have like a very like a dark side of me that really, really, really liked horror movies and really like bloody, dark, creepy.
When you like currently, or even when you were younger?
No, this is like from a young age. Like I was afraid of it, but especially in adolescence and up until I learned about emotional addiction and realized how anxious I was. And how the correlation between all those memes about like murder podcasts and coffee and anxiety, I was like, I was that girl.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband and I were obsessed with horror movies. So it was like, we were forever just sitting on the couch like, and I'm like, no wonder I'm anxious all the time.
All the time.
Being calm is uncomfortable because all I'm trying to do between auditioning and stand up and like living in New York and watching horror movies is like feel the most anxiety possible. And then
always
my body started to break down.
Yes.
Yeah. It's like, how can I get high? How can I like live on a constant roller coaster? And like, I swear I have, and if it didn't make me sick, I probably would have stayed doing it because it felt so good to some part of my nervous system. Yeah. But it made me like bleed internally. And then I started to reach for peace. And then life has gotten very, very different. But you can change all of that. And that's why there's no doubt in my mind that like taking little steps forward every day to support 30-something will be the biggest part of you. And the other two will just be these quiet little whispers in the background.
I know.
And like and it's just a step at a time, right? It's like these little things that we do every single day to support our nervous system, because that's what it is for everyone, right? Because when we're not taking care of ourselves and our nervous system is jacked up, we have the anxiety, we have the fear-based thoughts, we have more negativity, right? We don't feel good. Physically, that manifests emotionally and mentally. And so when you are eating food that supports grounding and like anti-inflammatory, when you are sleeping, when you are moving your body, when you are connecting with people who do make you feel seen, loved, and heard, all of a sudden that's how you support 30 something or whoever it is for all of you, right? Rainbow Heart Star Unicorn probably for me, I suppose.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing, going back to being very active and fulfilled, really, for a couple days. On Monday and Tuesday was very, again, active and fulfilled. And then Tuesday night on my way home, I went and got a whole bunch of Cadbury eggs and I ate them.
And then because I was a bad headache.
And then a horrible headache, didn't sleep, like I truly was just like, eek.
Ooh, I want to bring something up. I'm working on a new project.
Talk to us.
I'm so excited, but I wanted to read you a quote from one of my favorite doctors, Dr. Will Cole, who's a functional.
I love that you have one of your favorite doctors.
Celebrity doctors, it's not a big deal. I know people like celebrities, and I'm like, when I worked on the Tonight Show for a couple of years, and I'll tell people this. Like, I was at a dinner party last Saturday, and everyone's like, "Tell me everyone you met," and I was like, Giselle, Madonna, right. Like whatever, Ben Affleck, it's all fine. I'm like, you're like Will Cole, Will Cole is in the other room, and you can ask him questions about functional medicine.
I don't even know who you're talking about.
Mind.
I have no idea who you're talking about.
So excited.
Insane. One of my favorite doctors.
One of my favorite celebrity doctor authors.
You didn't even say celebrity though, but that's what I love.
Yeah, one of my favorite doctors. I guess I do have some favorite non-celebrity doctors.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know celebrity, but he's like
also keep what is celebrity.
Right. Instagram. I thought of you today when I read this, and it's chocolate actually. Repeatedly choosing to eat foods that don't love you back is like staying in a toxic relationship and wondering why you're still miserable. Choosing not to eat foods that don't love you back isn't restrictive, it's self-respect.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
I like this too, where it was talking about diet culture is when your decision to eat something is laden in shame and an obsession. Diet culture is about thinness, not health. Loving yourself enough to find out what your body really loves and needs for vibrant wellness is the ultimate body positivity. Accepting your body as it is doesn't mean you're settling for where you are right now. You are simply shifting your perspective towards making choices out of self-respect and self-love, not out of restriction, shame, obsession, or punishment. That is so where we're coming from over here.
Yeah.
But it's like there's something you get, right, from like the sugar. And I have another client who has worked with me who, we won't mention her name. She's lovely.
Sure.
She's had my program a couple times. She's fabulous. And she's like, I'm doing all the, my diet's great and this and that and the other thing, but it's every once in a while the candy also.
Of course.
Right. So it's like, what am I getting out of this? And like, what does this still represent? And for so many women, especially, I mean, men as well, but women, I in my whole time in this industry, will get really smart women who are making great choices. And then at night eating chocolate or sugar.
Yeah.
And often it is connection or loneliness.
Well, and we know.
Yeah.
Those are rampant in me right now. A lack of connection and loneliness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like that candy supports.
Yeah.
Like the candy makes me ball up because I don't feel well.
Which is so wild, right? That it's more comfortable for
I was tapping to the blob. Yeah.
I was trying to name the blob, but I couldn't remember the blob's name.
Right, blob. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just wild. And this is so common, right? We all have these ways, whether it's choosing certain thoughts, choosing relationship dynamics, drinking too much, eating certain things. And the cool thing is the more you grow, the more you become consciously aware, the more you strive and have tools to reach for the life and the relationships and the things you do want. These shift, right? They get more and more minor and they get less and less debilitating.
Yeah.
But they're still there. And I just love the idea. It's like, let's just try to choose things that love us back. People, activities, professions, foods. Like, how can we do the best job just choosing things that love us back? Because that is the biggest form of self-love and self-respect.
Yeah. It's hard. It's so hard. And it's, it's so hard for especially people who, and this sounds weird to say, but especially for those who have only been taught a different type of love, right?
Yeah.
Like love has been shown to them in a certain way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have no excuse,
Yeah.
like I
Yeah.
have very loving family. I'm very, blessed and privileged in that way. But yet there's some sort of safety in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being still surrounding myself with situations and people and careers that
I know.
that are
I mean, the entertainment industry is not the biggest loving industry.
No, it's not.
It's rough. It's rough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I am working on a new project.
I was about to say, this has been a very full hour of discussing my Blob and my smoking critic. You are working on a new project, which is very exciting.
It is. It feels exciting because I have not felt inspired in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And last year was, and I again, collectively, I heard this from a lot of people. I saw it with a lot of people. It was a very internal year.
Yeah.
And I think life is a little bit like this. Sometimes, like when we're ready to expand, we kind of have to go inward and check in with what that is, or heal, or whatever it is. And then you can go outward, and then you want to expand again. And it sort of goes in and out and in and out. And last year was a very inward year for me. Mm-hmm. And I grew a lot, and I learned a lot, and I dealt with a lot. And yeah, it had felt a little bit like, because as an adult, I'd always been really ambitious, and I really had a focus, and I don't know I don't think it came from the healthiest place for a number of years when it was related to acting, but it's what I needed to do, and it was good at the time, and then it felt good to shift a lot of that energy into my coaching business, which I'd had already, but like I had never put a primary focus on. And then without like really feeling contentment, and I like had a really interesting healing, I guess, around my relationship to like achievement and productivity, which then all of a sudden made me very not ambitious.
Right.
Which was scary, because then I was a little bit like, well, should I just, I don't know, get a job, have a baby somehow
with whoever,
and it just didn't feel like me. Yeah. And the beginning of this year, I started to realize that basically it's just an iteration of the class that came to me like 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's just refined itself as I've really explored what it was like to take people on a journey from basically we don't like to say this, a healing journey, but from
I just like to make fun of it, but go ahead.
Not feeling well to optimization, right? Mm-hmm. Or what I really see at this point as disconnection to connection.
Yeah.
Because I truly believe, especially being in this space for 10 years at this point, when you're sick, when you're not feeling well, when things are not going well, you are disconnected from yourself.
Yeah.
And it is an epidemic that so many people are living from the head up all the time. Mm-hmm. And people just don't know how they feel. And
yeah.
Especially
and actively avoid.
Oh, yeah. Because
actively
if
avoid.
You start digging through what's going on, often really uncomfortable stuff comes up.
Yeah.
And we'd rather avoid that forever than actually feel those feelings, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of it, like, especially women, and it's still happening, especially in the US, but, we get sold the story that we really get taught to hate our bodies. Mm-hmm. And if you hate your body, you don't listen to it. You don't even want to be inside of it. You live in your head, and you look at your thighs and you hate them, or your stomach, or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then you're cut off from your greatest source of power ever.
Yeah.
And it's not just women, men too, for sure.
For
right?
sure.
But I think women almost suffer a bit more. And we're at higher risk because our intestines are longer and our enteric nervous system is in our guts. Okay. We actually do have like more intuition because there's more information coming in that part of our body. Because, everything gets jostled around when you get pregnant. So our intestines are longer. There's just like scientifically more, you're getting more information from your body. Fascinating. So we have more to lose from not connecting to that part of us. Yeah. And it's been really interesting to zoom out and really see what are the trends, what are the things that most people need to, what are the things about nutrition and hormone and blood sugar and understanding, cravings and their physical body and sleep and all of that. And what are the mindset tools around, how do you feel your feelings? What are resources to process trauma? How do we stop identifying with the critic that we all have in our heads, right? Absolutely. How do we start to recognize the beliefs that we have about ourselves that are just keeping us small and preventing us from going after everything that we want or causing problems in all of our relationships? It's so wild. I was trying to understand why I've been watching the latest season of Love is Blind.
I know I'm late to the party, but I'm gonna this weekend. I'm usually
not even at the party.
I know you never
acting. I don't
never watch the stuff, but even reality TV, not even.
Well, I used to be after I quit acting, I was always a Bravo junkie. I
mean, how can you not be?
Right. But then that went along with when I started to realize what kind of media I was consuming. Yeah, it's very negative. And it is. Like, do I really need to be like watching a bunch of ladies yell at each other? Like, I don't really know.
It's tricky.
But I still find Love is Blind really, really fascinating because, it can't really be scripted. You're watching humans trying to human as hard as possible. Like, there is an authenticity to like what these people are. Like, you're watching people like try to fall in love, and it's really charming. Yeah. I'm like, sometimes quite off-putting. But it's interesting.
Of course, that's why we watch.
I know. Oh my god! So I'm in the spaces where now they're like out of the pot. If you guys don't know, Love is Blind is this reality show on Netflix that
welcome to the world.
Yeah, welcome to the world. Although I was texting a friend of mine today who had never seen it. I was like, please go watch it right now.
But like, never even heard of it.
No, she
like knew of it, but just didn't know how it worked.
Yeah.
Okay.
But essentially, it's these people who apply to go on this dating show where you're dating in these pods where you don't get to see the other person until you agree to get engaged. So like you have like a couple weeks of dating in these like pods, and then you get to decide if you like. And people fall in love. It's very sweet, and then they get engaged and see each other. And some people like it, and some people don't, and then they have to deal with that. So then they go on like a honeymoon kind of thing, and then they have to move in together. So I'm in the move in together part, and I'm watching these people have these fights that are so. And again, they're in their 20s, where I'm like, these people are so dumb, and I was like, that was probably me.
No, 100%. Yeah,
where you're watching just someone's trauma, completely dealing with someone else's trauma, and no one actually talking to each other.
Yeah,
right. So like. Really having tools to understand like these crazy beliefs and that aren't real, and you're watching people really sabotage relationships based on their own fear. It's really sad. Yeah. And like try and get really mad at someone who's actually not doing something wrong.
No.
And like you get to see like you're on the outside of, but they're like deep in their emotional trauma, and the other person like isn't really. And it's like, oh wow, this is really interesting. But just goes back to the fact that like, okay, we have to do these certain things physically to actually have our brains work, right? And we know as you have the candy and lay on the couch and whatever it is, like the next day, how do you feel?
Yep.
There are headaches. Your outlook on life is not as good. You don't sleep as well. We all know that. Like living with a hangover, not our best self, right?
No.
But when we optimize the mind, I feel like, and this is where the wellness industry, I got so bored because I felt like this is where the interesting stuff starts to happen, right? Yeah. When we get people clear-headed, then they start to get present to like, oh, whoa, I'm really mean to myself. Or I'm like very like irrationally afraid of stuff that like maybe doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So giving people sometimes, like I was saying that text I got earlier, really simple tools to not be afraid of how they feel all of a sudden the world opens up in all of these ways. And if you stay with me long enough, you get past the physical body, you get past like the noise in your head, and you're just left with like your authentic self and really what you want, and maybe what your purpose is, if you believe in that, or, you know, the things that actually light you up and make you happy, and the types of people. And that's really exciting to me, because, and I was saying this to someone yesterday, this other coach that I really like, who's sort of in the same space as I am. She's like, the cool thing about what you're doing is that like people go to therapy and it's just open-ended. You go and you pray, right?
Sure, yeah.
Deal with stuff. And it's amazing. And like therapy is absolutely something that everyone should do at some point, I think.
Yeah.
But she's like, the interesting thing with this is like you have a framework where people actually can get somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a means to an end. And it's funny because I've just walked people through this for years, and it sometimes takes years.
Of course.
Where it's like, okay, we need to understand our relationship to our own body. What do we need to feed it? What do we need to do? We need to understand our relationship to our mind. Great. Then we need to be brave enough to face the things that we really want. And then some people get just stopped there. Like I had a client a couple of years ago that we got really faced with what it was, and then he disappeared for a year and a half.
Yeah.
And he came back.
We're not ready.
Like,
Sometimes we're not ready.
Sometimes you're not ready. Like I knew I was in with my marriage and my relationship was 10 years altogether. And he was one of my favorite humans I've ever met on this planet. It was a beautiful experience. But there were moments before, and I remember just having this gnawing sensation that maybe this wasn't right. And it was so devastating. I didn't want to know that, and I didn't want to hear that, and I didn't want that to be true. And I think, and that's okay, right? Because I think we do whatever we do until we get the lesson out of it.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because then what I love the most about what I do is like then helping to almost like incubate these people's dreams, like give you like, oh, we moved through all of the vines and through the thick forest, and there's a clearing, and there's this like beautiful pond there, and this sparkling fresh water, and all you want to do is drink or swim, and they're like terrified. And it's like, how can I get you to like step into this next version? And if we look at health being so much bigger than just diet and exercise, and we know now that it's like the thoughts that you think, it's the people that you surround yourself with, it's your environment, it's your community, like all of this is true health. And again, this coach I was talking to yesterday, she's like, yeah, when you get people connected to what they really love to do, they're healthier. They've got healthier relationships. They're nicer to the people in their life, right? So all of this is connected. So what I've finally started to realize is this thing that I've been guiding people through when it started in New York, when I was teaching acting classes for like optimizing performance. I sort of bumped into it with the group program with the women, this really interesting formula of connection, of, I don't even know what to call it, right? But it's
you're calling it the formula for a little bit. I like that.
That's what we're calling it for right now.
Okay.
But and then I got so brokenhearted because I would get so many women reach out to me during the pandemic when I was doing like the height of the program and stuff, who couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
Who didn't have time, didn't have money, busy moms, whatever. And I realized that I have all this information.
Yeah.
And I believe that everyone should have access to it, because I think we all should know how to feel good in our bodies. And I don't think we get taught the right thing. So it's like, how can I create a platform to democratize this information, to make it clear and bite-sized, scientifically based, easy to understand, and self-guided? Yeah. Because the other part of this process is not everyone's willing. Like we've spent a couple years together, right? Yeah. And I have plenty of clients. Like I would say the minimum amount of time someone's really committed to like changing their life with me is 2 years. But it's gone. I mean, the longer I get, my longest running client is 5. I have 3 years. I have people coming back because they see that it's a cycle. Growth is a cycle. Absolutely. Health is a cycle, right? And like we were saying before, it's like every time you get to that next phase, you have to grow again, and everything gets triggered in all of your coping mechanisms in your physical health, all of your coping mechanisms and fear-based thoughts in your mental health, going down to then I don't want to hear this. I don't want to listen to it. I don't want to, I kind of know, but I don't know for sure yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You go through this cycle every single time. And I'm like, okay, what if people had access to tools and information that they could go back to every year or every few months? Because healing, and this is where people also get frustrated. I'm like, we're making 1% small incremental changes that will change your entire life.
Absolutely.
Right? So if you
Absolutely.
if you think you're coming to me for a quick fix, lol. You're
But
spending life together.
But you can get fixes.
Yeah, absolutely.
With
like,
tools
that will
change. So there's like quick fix I use with quotes with like small little things that have greater impact, right?
Yeah.
So it's not that it's because therapy is not a quick fix, but you have, if there's anyone that, I mean, and going back to what Catherine, your client, who we had, I guess, 2 people ago on the podcast, she was talking about like having her therapy, but then continuing to come to you because you can help with these tools and having like active fixes, for lack of a better term. Tools.
Yeah.
Tools. But anywho, having access to those and coming back to them when you're ready and when you're and it's a larger thing, but then in the meantime there are steps that you help set up. Wow. And that was a lot of words and I didn't say anything. But please
that's
proceed.
Like majority of how I talk though.
I know, I'm like
saying very little.
What did I just say? I don't know.
Well, it's empowerment, really. It's healing, it's empowerment, it's transformation. Like that is what we're doing here. And at the end of the day, I want to make this really easy for everyone to access, because I think even like I was saying, like that test, like just teaching someone, and again, and everyone take this with them. When you feel something really, you have time and space in your day and you feel jealousy, anger, frustration, pain, instead of trying to shove it away, what if you gave yourself a moment to, I just picture like inhaling it in and letting it like, become big and take over my body, like whatever it is, like I welcome like this grief. It's like, you are allowed to be here. Teach me something. Tell me what you need. You can stay as long as you need. Really just like you're inhaling it and maximizing this feeling, and watch what happens. Maybe you'll cry. Maybe you'll want to scream. It'll go away faster than you think. And you will feel better and get information. And then the next time it happens, you're not as afraid. And then all of a sudden you're braver. And then you're creating a life that you really love. And this is what I want to put out into the world in a way that is a lot more accessible and something you can do on your own time.
Yes.
But I believe in it. It's like, this is my life's work.
Yes, it is.
And
it's exciting.
2024.
2024, very exciting. Again, there we are.
I know.
So 2024, more action and external work.
Yes.
And a lot is, I'm very excited. I'm very excited for your offerings and what's to come for you.
I think it's going to be really good. And it's now, I am at heart an artist. I have to be making stuff.
Absolutely. That creative mind. Yes.
Right. And they always used to say how like we all are creative, right? And creative energy, if we don't use it, becomes destructive. I'm like,
that's what's happened to me.
Yeah. We see that with you.
Boy.
And like, how do we reconnect? Anyway, before we close this out, in light of everything we've talked about, especially with, little things you can do, what can you do that will nourish and support 30-something? Because I think that's the name of the game for you, right? It's that if we nourish 30-something, you're going to continue to make choices that make you feel really good, that go after the things that you want out of life. So that being said, how are we nourishing 30-something today?
Thank you. I am excited because I signed up a few weeks ago for this painting workshop.
Ooh, I love painting.
Yeah. There's a an abstract artist that's here, that's in New York, that I absolutely love. And she posted something, I followed her for a long time, and she posted something about like she's moving studios, and before she does, she wants to just have like a workshop, whatever. And I was like, yes, fuck yes. So I am going to her studio tonight and
nice.
painting. And so I'm very excited. She asked, she was like, are you bringing a friend or just you? And I was like, oh, I could. And I asked one of my friends who's an artist as well, but is like, she does graphic design and stuff. And she's unavailable, but I'm excited about going. It's totally less about like a night out, and it's more about just like reconnecting. Now we're back.
Better.
Okay. I was saying that it's less about being social, even though that's a huge part of it. And it's more like it's more about just being creative and being, because I don't paint anymore here. I mean, I don't paint at home that much because I live in a studio and I have cats. So it's like, it's hard for me to leave stuff out. So then it's like, I don't want to bring it all out to complete something. You can't. Anywho. So I'm very excited about that. So that's something that I think is going to be very helpful. I got to continue working on this production design stuff, which I do really enjoy. And I feel, it brings me, it's not the thing that makes me the happiest, but it definitely feels good. So, so I've got stuff today and tomorrow that's going to be really, that will light me up.
Good.
And I'm also going to reach back out to the 3 friends specifically who have been like, are you okay? Just to let them know I'm okay.
I think that by the end of this week, I need you to write those emails about the shows.
And by the end of this week, I'm going to write emails.
I'm gonna text my comedy husband and be like, book her. She's not reaching out. Just book her.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. What are you doing this week or by the end of the week? That gets you excited.
Well, working on this has gotten me really excited. Working on the project. Good. I love working I love making things. I love building. I like.
Yeah. When it's
that
right.
Feels really exciting to continue to work on that. There's like a women's empowerment brunch, like wellness thing that I'm going to on Saturday, which also is good.
I love that.
Last year was so internal that like I feel like exercise is feeling more important to me lately. So I'm going to like a different kind of workout class tomorrow that I haven't been to in the morning. So that's going to be fun.
Okay.
Having a bit more focus and direction is lighting me up. So being productive, actually, after a year of feeling very unproductive.
Same.
Is feeling really good to me. And we'll pose this for everyone. What are you doing for that inner child or that part of you that
you're
the inner artist or you're 30 something, your rainbow heart star unicorn. Yeah. What are you going to do this week that feeds that part of you? Because again, the more we prioritize the things we love, the parts of ourselves that are healthy and happy and go out in the world, like, you are creating deeper grooves in your brain and new neural pathways that make it easier to be that fun 30-something version of you, right? All of that is our brains are so malleable. And I
have one fun little anecdote before we part ways.
Let's hear it.
In my old life, I had a podcast with my old creative partner, No Such Thing as Love. And we, it was all about dating and whatever. And we actually looked into applying for Love is Blind.
You did?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. So devastated that you didn't get on.
I know. So we got the application. We even we had a shared Google Doc that we were just like writing answers.
Was it after the
Yeah,
first?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We knew what it was.
You wouldn't have to like move to a different city though.
So they were looking for New York.
Oh, but they never did New York.
They ended up not doing it, probably because they were like, it's too fucking expensive. But they
They're
were
like,
calling.
we're not going to house people in New York.
We can't like rent an apartment building.
Yeah,
like,
they're like, no, we can't.
Absolutely not. But they were looking for New York, or at least like Northeast or something, like maybe Philly or something.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah, we were looking into it, and we even were like working on the answers of all because it's an extensive questionnaire.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that you need to agree to, and if my memory serves, is that you have to agree to be okay with being like MIA or off the grid for 3 months, like not being, even if you don't make it on TV. So
it's 3 whole months that you.
Well, yeah. So I mean, people obviously go back to work, kind of. But now, granted, maybe they've made it more streamlined now. But when we were looking at it,
yeah,
it was 3 months, and then we started having a serious conversation. First of all, my first issue with it was that's when I was really deciding, like really working on my sexuality. And
right,
so
that would have been confusing.
Absolutely. So I was like, I don't know if I can really, because there was like part of it is, are you hetero? Are you, whatever. Yeah. And it was like,
I can't even answer the first question.
No. And it was like, are you bisexual? And so I was like, I'm going to say I'm bisexual. And then I was like, but then that probably won't help my chances. Right. And then I was like, how could they, even if they wanted to have, it's like, how do you do that? Because then everyone has to be isolated. Like you're never around anyone else.
Right.
You know?
For 3 months.
So it's like, that's not good TV. So anywho, yeah. And then we both had a serious conversation about, like if we for 3 months did not work, essentially.
Yeah.
And our story was not picked to be on TV, we'd be livid. And then it was like, okay, I don't think we're signing up for the right reasons. If we're more concerned about like the exposure and the, I mean, like, granted,
that's exactly the wrong reasons.
It's exactly the wrong reasons. So then we were like, I mean, I had my own reservations, but because of my sexuality, but yeah, we both were like, that's not good. Like, we need to be guaranteed that we're going to be on TV.
We're going to be on TV or else, because we really want to find love.
Right. And it's like,
and they're like, what do you guys do? We're actors. They're like,
I know. So it was like, but we did like fully investigate. We were through that. And we were like, let's go ahead and finish these questions, because the questions were interesting in a way of like, a lot of them were like, what are you looking for? What your past relationships, stuff like that. So like, that was kind of fun to go through.
That kind of stuff.
Exactly. Things like that. So yeah. So anyway, just a fun little anecdote. We looked at that and we had talked about it on the podcast, and someone knew someone that was in casting, like a fan, and like had reached out, like, have you seen their names or whatever? And they were like, no. And she was like, have you done it or not? We were like, we didn't do it. We don't want to do it. Never mind. We realized not good for us. But anyhow.
I don't have a story along those lines, but my ex-husband was approached to be the Bachelor.
I think you did tell me that. I don't think you said it on the podcast, but yes.
I mean, he would have been perfect. Like, he's so Bachelor-y. Like, he would have been perfect. And he started going through the process and then just was like a little freaked out by
It's like
it.
too much.
Yeah, he's a bit of a show pony, so I could see him. But I think that at the end of the day, he's so sweet. I don't know if
it was too much.
Yeah. But it was funny though, because he was like a lawyer and he was post law school, but for a little while he was living with his parents and he was like surfing. He was like in Cape Cod surfing all the time, and he was approached and he was kind of like, I live with my mom and dad right now. Like, I don't know if I'm like really, but he had like a really good job. You know, it was like
Of
he was about
course,
to
of
move to
course.
New
It's
York.
just, yeah.
So it was very, but yeah, that was like, yeah, I remember he told me that early and I was like, ooh,
Ooh.
I'm marrying what could have been, I won The Bachelor.
Bachelor potential.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh my God. All right, guys. Get on Love is Blind if you want.
Yeah.
What are we teaching people? Or
I
just
know.
watch it and make fun of everyone.
Right.
And oh God, they're trying their best. It's so sweet.
Everyone's trying their best. I
It's
mean,
just
let's
so
be
sweet.
honest.
I love people so much. I just do.
I know.
All right, guys. Do the thing for your inner 30 something.
Yes.
And then
Also for our inner 30 something.
Yeah.
Rate, subscribe.
Yes.
Also leave like a review. It can be a series of emojis, whatever, but like that all helps. So
yeah.
you don't have to be clever or whatever. You can just, it always helps.
It always helps.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being part of the community. So many exciting things to come. Write to us too if there are any guests or any types of subject matter you want covered. We love learning
questions.
Things, anything in health and wellness, mental, physical, all of the above. Let us know. All right. Love you guys all.
Love you.